My name's Stacy. I'm with a company called IQmetrics. I'm very excited to be here. I think this industry is just phenomenal, and you're all very, very lucky to be part of it. I'll warn you up front, I have 102 slides, but I'm very fast, and I make my points pretty quick, and I have so much content, and I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to presentations because I can never make up my mind on what do I really want to talk about, what should we, so I just try to jam it all into one. So if you come to our booth, I will give everyone a copy of this. All 102 amazing slides will be in your hands by the end of the day. So just know that. So like I said, I'm a rambler. I will try to finish very hard on time. And just to be completely transparent, I'm not in sales. So I consider myself, at our company, I call myself the Department of Reality. And what I do for our company is I oversee delivery. So that could be custom projects, any launches of any of our new products. And I just recently took over development for our core flagship product. So I'm not in sales, I'm the reality person. So anything that I say our systems have to do, I actually have to execute on. So that's a very interesting spot to be in, but very fun. So I have been with the company for 15 years. We were founded in wireless retail. So we built our company to the point where we're operating and supporting just over 19,000 doors, mostly in the wireless industry, and we process over $15 billion just last year through our system. So our systems have been built to scale and architect so that we have, a way to support big booming industries just like the repair world. And what's been cool about this company that I've been with for so long is that their motto is to create great experiences. And we really genuinely try to follow that no matter what it, might be about. Retailers using our systems, their customers using our employees, customers walking into your door. What's the experience that needs to happen in a retail store? So we're very much founded on this idea of creating a great experience, and we've done very well in doing that in the wireless industry, and we're very excited to be really engaging in the repair industry and doing the exact same thing. So the thing I want to talk about today is the fact that repair retailers are selling an experience. You're not just selling products and services. So what I want to do is focus what I want to talk about what have we learned in the wireless industry as an operational thing, that retailers need to consider that you can take to your business. What are the best retailers doing out there besides just selling products and services to make sure that that experience is just perfect in the store? This industry, of course, is just booming. Over $24 billion is what we estimate it to be worth right now. We think there's about 13,000, maybe more by now, service and repair doors out there. That's a lot of doors. So we need to make sure that those doors are creating the right experience in their stores so that you can get customers in and out, make a profit, create a good experience, and get that moving. What's really cool about this industry is no one has a market where 95% of adults are potential customers. I mean, that's just amazing. Wireless doesn't have that. This is ridiculous and so exciting that 95% of people walking around will have a device that will potentially need to come into a retail store to have repaired. Most of those devices are, of course, smartphones. That's on the rise nonstop, so it'll be exciting to see what this number is next year, probably closer to 90%. So the market and the opportunities out there are just so exciting. What I want to talk about today specifically, the foundations being that metrics have to rule everything when we think about running a retail operation that does repair. And we have to start controlling the chaos. So this industry is booming, and it is really exciting, but if we're not ready to scale it and control the chaos a little bit, it's going to be really difficult to do those things. So remember, I am a hoarder of content, so I actually have 7 things I want to talk about. And these are the 7 things that I'm going to go through today to, try to help retailers in this repair space keep consistency and use data to make good decisions. So that's what let's start with is data versus information. So what is data? Data is just a bunch of facts and statistics all lumped together. And people just love it. And it's super important. And people just think, oh man, if I have all this data, I'm just so empowered to do all this stuff. But data is actually nothing. If you have all the data in the world, it's just the equivalent of this. You just have numbers on numbers and numbers, and people are very comforted by numbers. So they just think the more complicated, the bigger, the everything down to the detail. If I have that, I've got what it takes to make a good decision. But data by itself really doesn't tell you anything. You have to start sorting through the data, and you have to turn data into information. And that's where it gets very exciting for repair retailers, because they can start looking at their data, turn it into information, and then they can start making good decisions with that information. Now, as humans, our brains are actually pretty good at knowing your data. So you could look at a whole bunch of data, and your brain can analyze it. You know what your sales were last month. So your brain can compute, this is what my sales were last month. This is what they are this month. Is it better or worse? You can figure that out with your brain. And then, your business starts growing, and your brain can only take so much before you can't turn that data into something by yourself anymore. There's just too much of it. And you're going to cap out, and math is not going to be right. We should never rely on humans to have to do really anything when it comes to numbers and data. We need to use technology to turn all of that data into really powerful information. And computers are smart. You can trust a computer. They can do math. They can do it really fast. You just need to tell technology, this is the type of end result I want, and let technology deal with, how to figure that out for you. So I'm going to talk a lot about data, information, and how we can use data and information to make good business decisions. So how does that apply specifically to a service and repair retailer? How do we take that information, and how do we actually turn it into actions? This is something we learned a lot in the wireless industry, is people would get super overwhelmed with their data, and they wouldn't know what to do with it and what to physically change in their store. What policies do they put in place? What do they change? And they wouldn't know because they actually couldn't interpret it right. So the first, or second, I'll probably say everything's the first thing I want to talk about in this topic. The second thing is, how do we take that data and information and run a better operation with it? The first is starting at the foundation. The foundation of metrics start at the employee and store level. If the employees don't exist and the stores don't exist, doesn't even matter what you have beyond that. So you always have to start at the lowest level of the information chain, and that's at the store and employee level. This is what you have to stop doing. Retailers have to stop doing anything manually, especially commission. This is employees' bread and butter. It's very important that it's accurate. It's very important that it's visible, that they can predict it. People should not be doing this by hand. The other mistake that a lot of people do is they lock themselves into a very basic set of information, like they only report on how many of this have I sold and what were my total sales. And that's actually not going to get you very far, because that's just too basic. You can't really make a good decision and next step around just quantity and sales. So we have to take it up a notch. Another thing we have to stop doing is sending stuff out too late. Sending data out to your stores at the end of the week or at the end of the month, that is not motivating. Your stores are not going to be motivated by that. They're not going to understand where they are. They're not going to understand how they're going to get to the next place. So this manual idea of doing all of this stuff just really does need to stop. And then the last thing, and this is probably the most important thing, is, again, people feeling comforted by data, is creating those big, huge, crazy reports. Like the reports that have 1 million columns, and some are green, and some are yellow, and some are red, and you're supposed to interpret it. So we all know this, right? People think goldfish have a short attention span. And we always make jokes and compare everything to, I feel like a goldfish today because I can't even remember that. So take a guess at what the average adult's attention span is. Anyone have a guess? Oh, that's actually the best guess I've had so far. It's 8 seconds. So humans have a shorter attention span than a goldfish. So when I say we have to stop creating these crazy complicated reports and giving them to stores, do you think you could interpret this in 8 seconds? You can't. So by the time someone's trying to figure out what are my sales, it's been 8 seconds, so they're not going to get it. So people are very comforted by this type of data, and this is not helpful to your stores. So this is what we should keep doing. These are some of the good things that operators and retailers are doing that we should keep doing and actually start expanding on. First, remember, note not just quantity and not just sales. What are our margins? So what are our margins per SKU and per part? So looking at margins is way better, of course, than looking just at sales. We actually still come across people who are so focused on sales and not the margin that feels like a pretty obvious thing. So that's something we're going to keep doing. The other thing we have to keep doing is looking at our upselling and our warranty packages and turning those into attachment rates and setting standards. I expect you to work in my store, you're going to have an attachment rate of this on your accessory upselling or your warranty, and you have to actually set that as a measure and send it out. You have to start sharing data with employees and stores, and when I say share, I mean literally daily. At the absolute longest, at the end of the day, you might still have a chance of someone being enabled by it, knowing what they're supposed to do, but no longer than that. If anything, it should be real time and hourly. And then the next thing is visualizing data. So of course, we don't want those old, bad, crappy reports we just saw. We would rather take the exact same data, turn it into information, and have something like this. Someone with an 8-second attention span is going to be able to interpret this. What's my profit? I know immediately. What am I trending? What are my big buckets? So data is significantly more helpful when it's visualized correct. So here are some of the more advanced things we would want to start doing with our metrics. So first, have an actual strategy. People don't think they need a strategy with measuring and information and data. Like, you have to have a strategy. What does that mean to you? What end goal are you trying to drive by having this data and strategy? You want to track stuff real time. Technology can do this for you. So if people think that, oh, I can't do that, or I've got to pull this Excel sheet, because a lot of people get intimidated by this, there's technology galore. We're one of them. There's lots of them. Real-time data is absolutely crucial to engaging your stores. And then, of course, advanced metrics. So more than quantity, more than sales, even more than attachment rates. We have to start getting, especially in the repair world, this is a complicated thing that we're doing for a customer. We have to really analyze the metrics behind what's happening on that repair. So here's one piece that we can look at when we talk about having a strategy for reporting, is how are you going to engage your stores? Are you going to use gamification? This is a great way to engage millennials in your store. I'm not sure about the specific number of millennials working in repair stores, but in the wireless stores, it's very, very high. So you have to be able to engage with them. So creating reports that are game-based, with goals that give messages that are very engaging, that compare them to other stores, that's a strategy that you can implement. The other thing is, how are you going to deliver? What's your delivery strategy? Are you going to email this stuff out? Are you going to auto-email it out? Are you going to use a point-of-sale system that just gives it to them whatever you want? So you have to make that consistent too. It's also super confusing and overwhelming for stores if you start giving them data from like many different points. Sometimes it's in the point-of-sale, sometimes it's in your email, sometimes it's in a little chat window, whatever it is. If you've got too many points, it's kind of confusing. So one good way we can do it is through mobile access. Make sure that your people have access to their device always on their phone. That's a great way to engage them. It's a great way, no matter where you are as the business owners or your stores are, your managers are, they always are in the know, real time. And the other cool thing is showing trending. This is one of the metrics I love with the strategy, is showing trending. But here's a huge mistake. People love to think trending is just, how many of these do I sell per day? How many days are in a month? And then you do the division and that's how you trend. And that's just very basic math. But if I'm one of your employees, what if I don't work tomorrow? Or whatever that, my schedule is. You can't trend me based on one day and the math of a whole month. I don't work the whole month. So trending in most retailers is actually almost always wrong, right away. Trending should actually be based off of scheduled data. You know that me as an employee, I sell this many per hour. And you should trend, to me, off of my scheduled hours. That's true trending. Does that make sense? Cool. I apologize. We switched computers, so some of these slides are a little funny, but that's okay. This is the advanced metrics that I'm talking about for the repair world. So we have to start really analyzing the repair itself. How efficient is my repair? And what's the quality of it? Most people are just obsessed with how many repairs am I doing? Am I doing 100 a day, 100 a week? But what you have to start looking at is, what is the quality of those? How many are coming back? Just because your best technician does the most doesn't mean he's the best. It means he does the most. And if they're just fast and crappy and they're all coming back, that's not the right person that should be the only person that you're pushing the repairs to. So you have to start measuring efficiency and quality of your repairs. The other thing that's really important is customer satisfaction scores, especially in this industry. Social media is very important in this industry, should be important to the retailers. So taking that data and comparing it to your sales, also very important. What you'll start finding is you might have a technician who appears to do a less quantity, but has a very high quality, and the customer satisfaction scores are also going to tell you that. So when you have information and data and you can say, here's my sales, and here's how many get returned, and here's how our customers are satisfied by that, and you put it all together, that is extremely, extremely helpful information. So how do we take all of that and flip it into what a store and corporate office should be doing? So at the end of the day, the foundation is still the same. Things should be real time, things should be visualized right. It's just you're taking that same strategy that you built for the employees in the stores, and you're doing the same thing for corporate. So you're finding a way to visually show you as the owner-operators, as the inventory managers, what do you need to know and how can you visualize it? So this is just a quick check and then you're on with your day doing the rest of the things. You should be able to quickly visualize and see your financial information, your inventory data, all of your KPIs. Information and technology should be able to tell you, hey, these are your top sales reps, technicians, stores, or here's something that's struggling. And you should be able to just set up technology and reports to tell you all of that. The other thing that's very important at the corporate office level is foot traffic. So as retailers start growing, it's very important for you to start measuring how many customers are actually in your stores. You know what you're doing, but do you know your conversion rate? Do you know how many people actually came into your store and you actually converted into a sale or a repair? Probably not. So having a strategy for capturing foot traffic data and then taking that foot traffic data and putting it with your sales history, that's very powerful. You can take that information and make some really good decisions with that. Same goes for scheduling. So how are you scheduling your stores? Is that efficient? Is it not efficient? So technology should be able to help you take, am I scheduling people in my stores when I actually have customers there? In wireless, we saw this huge trend where people always started a schedule at noon. And noon was this one time where they would start their second shift of the day, noon or 1. But they actually realized people weren't actually in their store until 2 or 3, and that was maybe the busiest time. So depending on your mall or wherever the store is located, the number will be different, but you have to be able to tell when are customers in my store and when do I have people scheduled. You don't want to overschedule and you certainly don't want to underschedule, so having the ability to do dynamic scheduling and combine that with foot traffic data, that's amazing information. And you can really be efficient in your scheduling if you take that data and look at it right. So just very quickly, the big takeaways for metrics. Use information, not data, to make your decisions. Report on advanced things like quality and efficiency of your repairs, and visualize your data nicely. Those are the top 3 things I would hope you would take away from that. So the other topic that data is very important with, and not just data, just operations in general, is inventory management. So I was in wireless for 15 years. I saw this go from being very young and there was no process and no policies to now wireless retailers are on point with their inventory. They know exactly how to do it. And we just need to replicate what other retailers are doing and bring that into the repair world. So specifically, inventory counting. This is one of my absolute favorite topics to talk about, but I'm going to try to be fairly to the point on this one. These are the topics that I think the best of the best need to know about in their operations. So when we talk about counting our inventory, you have to blind count it, and that means you hide your serial numbers. Stores should not know what serial numbers they're supposed to have when they count inventory. With our wireless customer base, everyone showed every serial number, and it didn't seem wrong. And when we looked at everyone's data, 95% of all of the count sheets that were out there, all of the inventory counts, they were all perfect. Do you think 95% of all stores just have perfect inventory every single time? No. No one has perfect inventory. But data looked like they had perfect inventory. So you have to hide that. And that keeps stores accountable because all they're allowed to do is count what they physically have. They can't just look at a list and be like, yep, have those. And I will tell you, when people implement this, it's always very upsetting to the stores because it takes more work for them. So stores completely hate this, but it's something that's totally worth it. And once you kind of rip the Band-Aid off, it's just totally worth it. You'll see your inventory counts get way more accurate. The other thing is counting more often. Retailers who are typically just starting out, have just a couple stores, still count just once a month, or less, sometimes once a quarter. That's just, honestly, just not acceptable. It will come back to bite you at some point. And I'll talk a little bit more about that and how we can avoid that. But what will happen for people who are counting once a month or less, you just end up writing off big chunks of inventory every time. And there's no way to even audit it. How do you even know when that part went missing? You'll have no idea. So we find that the right middle ground is counting once a week, serial numbers once a week, spot checks for non-serial numbers once a week, and full count once a month. And then there are the best of the best operators who have nailed this. They know exactly how to do it, and they count their serial numbers every single day. And they do it either when they start at the beginning of the day, when they close at the end of the day. This is something having a strategy around has to happen. Because you will just write off so much inventory and you'll have no idea why. And this is a very, very important step as a retailer. This one I just always feel the need to have to put in here. I can't tell you how many inventory rooms I've gone in, and it's a disaster. You go in the back of a retail store and it's so messy, and you think, how on earth would you possibly count this? So very small thing, but keeping inventory closets very clean and organized will just completely change your life. And then how do metrics come into play? You should set inventory loss goals. There should be a measure. It's acceptable to write off this much per store, per week, per month. And you shouldn't be quick to ignore small write-offs. Those small write-offs add up to a lot. And someone will find a hole somewhere where they'll steal little parts. And if people are just quick to ignore them and write them off, then there's nothing you can do about that. You should always be reviewing your counts within 1 business day. 1 business day is the amount of time you have to make it right again. Recount your items, and then really consider what do write-off values mean to your managers. So if you exceed what I say is acceptable for your inventory write-off, then I'm going to ding you in your overall profit of your store. So in order for us to be successful at inventory counting, we have to be successful at serialization. This is huge for repair retailers. Serialization is very important. Number one, if we serialize correctly, we get a very, very accurate visibility into our on-hand inventory, quantity and value. We know exactly that serial number, its cost, we know where it is. We know its accountability, we know how to trace it. A serial number is unique, we can see all of the history. It's an amazing thing for you to be able to start creating the right experience when you can see exactly where all of your parts have been. And of course, it has to be your next step for your recycled products. So in the repair world, this is a quick average view of part values. There's a lot of cheap, very high quantity parts. There's mid-range value of parts, and then there's the high range. And they really kind of just naturally fall into, buckets of value. So when do you actually serialize and not serialize? This bottom bucket of very cheap items, don't serialize these. It's just overkill. People think they should either serialize nothing or serialize everything, but if you serialize every single little thing, it's just going to kill you operationally. And you're just going to get into a whole time of wasting too much time putting the serial numbers, putting the barcodes, counting the barcodes. This we never suggest as a best practice. This middle bucket is really where the decision needs to be made. Do you think it's worthwhile to track the items in this mid-range bucket? And that's completely up to you, but if you're not committed to the right inventory counting, to how your inventory rooms are set up, to your process when you receive your inventory, this will backfire on you. So don't serialize these if you're not going to be accountable to the other parts of why serial number matters. And don't feel comforted just by having them serialized. So this is a mistake some people will do, is they'll serialize these parts, but then the rest of their operations don't support it, and it just becomes a burden, and because there is overhead required. And then, of course, the top bucket. These expensive ones, you have to serialize them. If your vendor doesn't serialize them for you now, you need a system that will auto-serialize them for you. You're going to say, make a hard rule. At this price point, anything that comes into my system, I want it auto-serialized the second it walks into my store. And from the point it walks into your store, you'll know the history of all of those items all of the time. Forecasting. This is another place where information is going to completely rule how you operate with inventory forecasting. Inventory decisions are just constantly better if you base them off of information and data and not just what do you think it should be. So this is our approach to inventory. We feel it's a three-step process. First is setting our min-max. So what I want to talk about specifically for the repair world on min-max is virtual quantity. And this is something that's very important in the first step of getting accurate forecasting. Virtual quantity is basically not what do I have in stock, but what do I have in stock plus what do I expect to receive from a vendor, plus what do I expect to ship out to another store, receive from another store, what's pre-committed to a customer already, what's already in a device. It looks at all of the things relevant to that SKU, not just what do I have on hand. Because what you have on hand is actually only part of what you need to consider when you forecast. And then, of course, you want to look at your sales history. What have I sold in the last 21 days, 30 days? And then what are things that a system can't know? Do you have a sale coming up this weekend? Is a new device being launched next week that there's no history on yet? So that's what a virtual quantity and min-max would be. Stock balance. This is a very big missing gap for a lot of retailers. Most retailers don't do this. This is crucial. If you go past 3 stores, you should be doing this. Before you order more, you should be seeing what you already have. If one store is overstocked, send it to the other store, the store that needs it before you order it. Technology should be able to automate this for you and just tell you what you need to transfer from store A to store B. And then at the end, you send the min-max, you send your orders to your vendors automatically. And I just want to focus on the word automatically. You shouldn't have to do manual work here. Technology and systems should be able to say, this is what you've ordered, great, send it to the vendor. You don't have to push buttons or do anything there. When you let systems, technology, information, data run your forecasting, you'll have real accurate numbers in your store. What you don't want to do is emotional ordering. And then we have seen this in wireless over and over and over, where people order with their emotions. That's going to be the next best thing, so I'm going to order 1,000 of them. And 2 very good examples of that we saw a bunch of retailers stock and then subsequently write off. The selfie stick, of course. People just thought they were going to sell thousands of these, so they ordered thousands. And then they couldn't sell thousands, and then they wrote off thousands because they used their emotions to order it. More recently, fidget spinners. You should see the number of fidget spinners we've seen our retailers write off. It's crazy. So, point being, don't use your emotions to order inventory. So the things you want to take away from the inventory side of things, count more often. You can't count enough. Your inventory is your baby. You have to count it. Serialize your products and don't use your emotions to order. Use technology. So creating consistent sales flow is the next thing I want to talk about, and this is where we have seen a lot of retailers work very hard to create their consistent sales flows in the floor. So the first thing is people who create a store flow for a retailer based on what the back office needs, that's not going to work. That will backfire eventually. You should create your sales flow based on what the store needs. Good example of that is a trade-in flow or a buyback flow. This shouldn't be overcomplicated. This should be an integrated, technology should do all of this for you, very basic. What do you want to do today? You want to trade in a device? Do you want to trade in a computer? What's the status of that computer or that device? Does it turn on? Does it not turn on? All of the things that you need. Technology should make that very consistent, and that shouldn't be done based off what's convenient for your back office. That should be done for what's the best experience for our stores to get through a transaction quickly. Here's a good example. Someone walks in, they've got a broken device or something's defective. If the answer is yes, is it broken? Technology should be smart enough, and again, I apologize for the weird formatting. Technology should be smart enough to automatically be like, yeah, if the employee said the device is broken, the screen is broken, we should know that screen is broken, bring it back into stock, put it in this status, put it so it's not affecting my in-stock quantity and affecting my ordering, and that should be off of one question. Is that screen broken? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, automate the rest. The store shouldn't have to do a bunch of convoluted things with a bunch of SKUs to make the math work for the back office. So then, of course, systems should be able to know, I brought in this many broken screens, this is how many I need to ship out to my vendor. And it should just automatically do that for you. And then when your vendor actually sends you payment for those devices, you should be able to reconcile them. And a system should be able to just bucket all of those steps automatically for you. And at the end of the day, it was one button, one question to the sales rep. Was that screen broken, yes or no? Everything else just naturally happens. You have to automate that. This will crush store productivity, and your numbers will be wrong. And it's going to be a reconciliation disaster if we don't make that flow really, really smooth. The other thing is often overlooked, but how important it is that you actually consult with your stores on if something's not working. Your stores are your best assets. Your employees have so much knowledge, and you should really ask them. If you're considering doing something, it's just unbelievable what your stores can tell you. A good example that we came across was cash management. Our first pass at if you were going to open your drawer or close your drawer was so convoluted, people just couldn't even follow it because we designed it originally based off of the back office. What would be best for the back office to reconcile the cash that shows up in their bank? And so that's how we designed it, and it was just not good. So stores were just begging, I need something easier. So stores were actually amazing help for us in particular on how to make it easier. So we made the math very, very easy. And you should make the math very, very easy for your stores. And getting that data collected back from them on a basic topic like this will really help out. And then the last thing is don't over-architect the sales experience. So some people will over-architect and add so many steps to what a repair would look like that it's just going to hurt the end result in the customer experience. So here's a good example. Someone walks in and what's wrong with the device? So this should be very basic for someone to go through. We don't need, an over-convoluted way of figuring out what is wrong with the device. And we shouldn't be using paper for everything. I find repair shops are paper overload. There's a paper checklist. There's paper that gets wrapped around a phone. There's paper to sign here. There's paper for everything all the time. So we need to cut out all of the paper. So another over-architected experience with paper is the checklist. What are all the things that are broken with this phone? So having an automatic, easy way that can make it nice and smooth for the stores, crucial. And this is a big, big thing. The other thing, specifically with paper, is the acknowledgement of when customers need to acknowledge something. So, for example, if the device is running warm, a lot of people print out a piece of paper, have the customer initial. Is the device, has it been exposed to liquid damage? One thing we're working on that we're really excited about is just that you can, step by step, question by question, ask, when do I want to actually have the customer sign and acknowledge that? So based on the question, push it out to the signature capture device. This will reduce the time it takes to check a phone in. It will reduce the amount of time it takes to diagnose what's wrong with the phone. But best for the back office, even though we didn't design it for the back office, everything is electronic. If you ever need to pull anything up that someone signed or acknowledged, everything is stored in the cloud. And then very basically, and this is, to me, cutting out paper 101, is when the customer leaves and they pay for something, that we email it to them. And this does several things. Obviously, it's good for the environment, but it gives you the chance to upsell your customer one more time. We can attach a coupon. We've also collected their email address, so future marketing. You guys are lucky. You're not in wireless where have carriers giving you rules when you can and can't reach out to your customers. You don't have that restriction. So that means this is crucially important to you, so that you can make sure that your brand is being represented correctly and that you're sending emails to your customers so that they're coming back to you. You're not just a cell phone repair company. You're more than that. And your experience should be more than that. And if you don't capture this piece of information, you're not going to be able to complete that life cycle for your customer. So this is a super easy way to really enable that experience. So very quickly, we want to automate the buyback flow. We need to automate the recycle broken screen flow, and less paper, no more paper. Scale is huge. So what's different about the repair world versus the wireless industry is that their repair world is comprised of smaller retailers. There's a ton of them, but they're smaller. And so the smaller retailers, of course, will want to grow. You're going to want to add more stores, but you won't be able to add more stores if you're not ready to add more stores. So you have to be ready to scale. Your operations need to scale. Everything needs to scale. So it doesn't matter if you have one store. You should assume either that one store is going to be so busy or that one store is going to turn to 10, 20, and so on. Everything should be architected to scale from day one. And the biggest part of that, we think, is the partners that you choose. Partners are crucial in this industry. So picking who you're going to partner with, and luckily for us, there's amazing partners in our ecosystem, in the repair world, in the wireless space. What we actually saw in wireless, so consider this, is that we found a lot of wireless retailers thought that they could replicate what partners do as their lifeline. So we saw tons of people build their own trade-in program, and then we saw tons of people not be able to scale it, and they shut it down. So you don't have to build everything in-house. Be really good at what you're good at and let partners deal with everything else. So our current ecosystem of partners is huge. We have a ton of integrated partners in our network, and they are what have really made our product more than just a retail management POS. Take our POS with all of our partners, and that made us what is so powerful in the wireless industry. In the repair world, we're looking to fill in those unique gaps. So there's a lot of overlap in the partners from the wireless space into the repair space, but there's the unique things in the repair world that we're actively pursuing right now. And those are things like part suppliers, manufacturers. That should all be integrated, and there's some really amazing partners out there. Same with buyback and trade-in. Training is a very key thing I wanted to talk about, because training is one of the things that will block you from scaling. If you don't have a good training program or partner in place to do your training for you, you won't be able to scale with all the new devices, all of the new things coming into your space. Ensuring all of your stores are certified to do that. Training is a very, very important one. So a training partner is something I would encourage everyone to really look at while we're at the show. And same with scheduling. So we're looking at a couple scheduling partners so that people will be able to go online, schedule an appointment, and that will push automatically into the POS. And that's what the consumer expects. So it's what we need to give to them. We need an e-com solution that has scheduling online because, again, it's not just about the quantity of devices we're repairing in a store. It's everything together, and partners will help you with that. This is another tiny little thing, but I've seen so many retailers do this mistake. I call this the two cell phone guy, but you guys can, interpret it however you want. This is the person who works for you that does everything. They probably have their personal phone and a work phone, or just one phone that rings off the hook, but it's the person who does everything. They do your ordering, they do your reporting, they fix your stores, they reconcile. This person's amazing, and they're so smart. But if this person gets sick, God forbid quits, will literally just cripple a company. And it's very not scalable to have one person that does everything. So the good thing is, as we automate things at the store and make our operations better, we should have people and resources available to help out our two cell phone guy really start to scale things. We should not do this. This is too hard to keep up with as the industry grows. And of course, we need to cut out as much human element as possible. So this is what every single retailer does today. They have a human who gets a lot of data, and they get this data from, a point of sale or a system or a vendor, and they manually figure out what parts of that data do they want to send to their financial system or their payroll system. Almost everyone does this by hand. This will also backfire. Anytime a human is doing something, there's a chance that it could be wrong. So this is good, but this will cost you a lot of money, and there will be a chance that it will have mistakes in it. You don't want to do that. Mistakes are not good, especially when it comes to your finances and your payroll. So you should automate this. There are all sorts of ways you can do this. There are systems like ours, there's middleware, there are all sorts of companies who can automatically do this for you. This is worth it. Because this will save you so much, and the feeling you have when your numbers are right, you can't put a price on that. That's a very good thing. So always automate as much as the back office as you can. And we have seen several retailers who have scaled, they've grown in locations, they haven't scaled the back office, and their solution is add bodies to the back office. It shouldn't matter if you have 1 store or 10 stores or 50 stores. If your payroll's automatic, it's automatic. You don't need more bodies to do that. And you don't need more bodies to take data and manually figure out what you want to put in your ERP. The other thing with scale is reconciliation. And I can't preach this one enough. I would talk for a whole hour if they gave me just on this topic. Reconciliation is key for your back office. Automate your data to your systems and then focus on this. These are things that everyone has to do, and it's not just the obvious things you'd reconcile. You want to reconcile, what does my store think they have in cash? What actually showed up in cash? What did I think I ordered? What did my vendor bill me for? You would not believe how many people don't reconcile some very basic things, and you would not believe how much money is out there that a retailer is losing out on because they didn't make sure and do their checks and balances on their reconciliation. And then, of course, we have to scale to be ready for whatever is going to disrupt the market. When I did my first presentation with IQmetrics in 2005, we literally thought faceplates were going to rule the world. And that ringtones and wallpapers, this was the future of a wireless retailer. That was not the future of a wireless retailer. That was that topic at that time. So you have to be ready for whatever is going to disrupt. We're already probably past the point. Repair shops are not about repairing a phone. They're going to be about repairing smart home devices and augmented reality devices. Drones are already needing repairs, so this is important. You have to be ready to scale to whatever the market's going to tell you needs to be repaired. This is very important. And if you're not quick to jump on this, you're going to be left behind. I always say every topic is pretty much my favorite topic, but this is really one of my favorite topics. This is that we can't live in denial about what could go wrong, and we should prepare for what's wrong. And I specifically mean fraud. Retailers have a lot of fraud, and we have to be ready to expose and shut the fraud holes that exist in retail. It's not all doom and gloom. We expect or know that about 10% of the employee population represents over 95% of all the theft within a store. And this is just something people just have to be okay with. You have to know it exists. It exists no matter what. And if you think you have a number today of what's being stolen from you, triple it, because that's actually what it is. So what do you guys think is the number one way people will steal from you from this list? Any guess? Number one, time card, refunds. There is so much fraud in refunds. I could talk to you about 20, 30 very, very common things, but refunds are the number one way. And there's all sorts of things that we know exist with refund fraud. Things like watching for someone who's always refunding something for $19.99 over and over and over. People who have admitted after the fact, they're comfortable. They like consistency. They like always doing their refund fraud first thing in the morning, last thing at the night. Measuring, do I always refund something under 50, but you're always refunding something over 50? There's all sorts of things. And technology should proactively tell you this. You should not have to dig through data to tell you this. Technology should be like, hey, something's wrong. You've got this weird thing happening. It's probably fraud. And you should just assume it will happen and prepare for that. And if you're prepared, it's not the worst thing. You prepare for it, you deal with it, and you move on. If you see something suspicious in a store, check all the staff. Same, if you find one staff, check all the employees in that store. The second most common way employees steal from a retailer is through buddy punching, where they steal time through time cards. This is insane. Like the amount of hours that have been taken from retailers just because of password sharing is wild. You should just use fingerprint scanners. These are super cheap. It's a $50 investment, and you can shut that down. So you just have to be okay with it. It actually speeds things up. It will save you time. It's awesome. And then at the end of the day, you have to use technology to help you do all of the things I've been talking about. So remember, the experience you want in your store isn't just done through technology and a point of sale. It's so much more than that. The experience in your store is, how is my customer interacting with my brand online? When they're in my store, what things do I have on the wall? How am I engaging with them? An omni-channel experience is pretty much mandatory in retail now, and we have to start implementing technology to achieve that right experience. A very good example of this is dropship, and there are partners in the repair world who do this today. And this is a way where you'll never miss a sale. If a customer walks in your store and they want something, you're going to be able to send it to them. They're going to pay right now, it's going to be at their door, and you don't have them leave your store and go on Amazon and buy something. So dropship is something that exists today, and this is a crucial part. But I would encourage you to talk to your vendors about this today, because this is actually up and coming really fast. If you're not doing this now, you're going to be behind pretty quick. My shameless plug, of course, is our system is a great system for retailers, especially retailers who want to scale and be accountable. And like I said, I'm a rambler, so these are other things I would have loved to talk about today, but of course didn't have time. We would love to ask you to come see us at our booth. We've got all sorts of things. I'll stick around if there's questions, but there's so much more to the repair world than what I talked about today. Those were just a couple examples. And before I leave, I wanted to give thanks to a few of the retailers out there who have really partnered with us in helping us really support the repair market. So Stay Mobile, Simply Mac, and iFix Your Eye have been very supportive with us, and I just can't thank them enough. You know, we're not claiming to be a company that knows every single thing about the repair industry, but we do know retail. And we know retail operations very well. And we have technology that can support retailers and their operations. And people like this and other retailers are going to help us really make our program just amazing. We're so excited to be here and be part of this really exciting industry. So like I said, I will give anyone this whole slide deck. Our booth is in the North Hall. We are holding a happy hour tomorrow from 3 to 5 in case anyone likes beer. We're big beer drinkers at our company. So we would love to chat with anyone and answer any questions and get to know people. And thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.